said, and said truly, of the hero Finn McCool, that if a day goes by without his name being mentioned, why, the world will come to an end. Well, now that I've taken care of that, I think we can all relax a bit. Now, some of you might be wondering, what's this Eastern European, Slavic, Polish guy doing, invoking the name of one of the high heroes of Celtic lore? Well, I'll tell you, it's in my DNA. Yeah, think about it. What other country has made a national cuisine out of boiled potatoes, cabbage, and bits of greasy meat? Yeah, Poland. I know, I was raised on the stuff. And it's a little known fact, but long, long ago, a fella by the name of Liam Olinsky set sail from the green shores of Erin, looking for a land where he might grow fatter potatoes and more succulent cabbages. Well, given the vagaries of his navigational skills and the vicissitudes of the North Sea winds and currents, why, presently he found himself fetched up on the shores of a land we now know as Poland. And Liam and his crew, they generously shared their seed with the local inhabitants. And yes, all you English majors out there, that's a double entendre. And a Celtic strain spread throughout the coast. And it goes a long way towards explaining the inordinate fondness of the Polish people for the accordion. So I got no compunctions about telling you the tale of Conan the Bald. Now, he was called the Bald because he had not one hair on his head, but just so much on his arms and his back. Why they had to shave him at least once a week. Yeah, they sheared him like a sheep. And it's a well-known fact that anyone lucky enough to lay their head on a pillow stuffed with the fur from Conan's back, why they'd sleep the sleep of a newborn babe, they would. Yeah. And I wish I had one of those pillows for myself. Well, one day, Conan, he was sitting in a pub, nursing a pint, minding his own business, not bothering anybody, when in comes one Jimmy O'Brien. Now, Jimmy was known throughout the town as a braggart, and a bit of a bully, and as one who was inordinately proud of his wild shock of red hair. Well, when he walks in and he sees the bald pate across the room, he's drawn to it like a moth to the flame. He comes up behind Conan, and he starts cackling madly, rubbing the man's bald pate. Ah, baldy, baldy. Ah, why, your head is as smooth as, why, it's as smooth as my wife's behind. Well, Conan, he thoughtfully raised his hand and rubbed his head and replied, why, so it is. Well, there was once a pickpocket, and he went to the big city to seek his fortune. And he worked the avenues and the streets of Manhattan, picking pockets all the while, and he did quite well for himself indeed. Until one day, he felt a hand in his own back pocket. Well, he snatched the hand and he spun around, and to his amazement, attached to the hand was a beautiful young woman. Why, you must be a pickpocket too, she said, for no one has ever felt the touch of my pickpocketing hand before. Indeed I am, he said. Guy, we ought to team up. What a team we'd make. And so they teamed up. Times Square, casinos of Atlantic City, and all the beach towns in between. They worked them all the places where the tourists and the swells and the suckers went to be parted from their money. One day he said to her, "Darling, you know, we ought to get married. For if we had a child, why he or she would be the greatest pickpocket the world has ever known." And so they were married, and in the due course of time, as these things go, they had a baby boy. But at the moment of his birth, they saw that his right hand, his pickpocketing hand, it was all scrunched up tight against his chest. Nothing could budge it. "Darling, look, his hand's all scrunched up against his chest. He'll never be the greatest pickpocket you've ever known." "Never fear, my dear," he said, "for we are quite rich, and we can afford the finest doctors. I'm sure one of them will be able to cure our baby." So they went off to Park Avenue, where all the most expensive physicians resided. And then he went to the most expensive corner, and there in the back was the most expensive one of them all. A specialist in wee scrunched up hands. And so expensive was he, why, he had this great gold watch. And he used it to time the visits of his patients down to the very last second. Well, the mommy came in and sat down. And then the daddy came in carrying the babe with the wee scrunched up hand. And they sat down. And the doctor took out his great gold watch. He opened it and set it down on the table. Well, the baby's eyes grew wide, riveted on the watch. And for the very first time, his wee arm moved out to grasp it. And for the very first time, his scrunched up fingers opened to grab it. And out dropped the midwife's gold wedding band. I opened with a bit of the old Irish tune, "The Fairy's Hornpipe," and then followed by a couple of tales that I learned from the great bard Robin Williamson, and I altered them to fit my own purposes, but they were basically the stories from Robin that he's told.